This video is part of a series intended to give an overview of the forms used by the American Red Cross in our shelter operations. The Shelter Dormitory Registration Form is the record of the client intake interview conducted when someone first enters our shelter. The form collects information about a client who will use our dormitory, including information about the family members who arrive at the same time. The intake interview allows the Red Cross staffer an opportunity to assess the client's needs, which can be met by our other services, such as disaster spiritual care, disaster health services, disaster mental health, disability integration, disaster assessment, and service to armed forces, as well as to our external partners, such as the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Department of Defense, and Veterans Administration. As part of the interview, the Red Cross staffer will also be able to identify a client who has immediate needs, such as isolation, personal assistance, or dietary restrictions, allergies, or religious practice. This is the top half of the Shelter Client Dormitory Registration Form. The top line contains the date of registration, the disaster response number, and the name of the shelter. The reception staffer fills in this line of information. The top box contains valuable guidelines for the registration staffer and two important questions to be asked early in the interview. The answers to these two questions will identify a client who needs immediate help from one of our support departments or from an outside partner. A positive response here to either question should be reported to your supervisor or to the shelter manager as soon as possible. The household information is self-explanatory. It's important that all boxes be filled in, no blanks. Enter either a 0 or not applicable or unknown if necessary. This is the bottom half of the Shelter Client Dormitory Registration Form. It's important that, if possible, the form is filled out by the registration staffer. This gives you the opportunity to observe the client's demeanor, to gauge the possibility that he or she needs immediate assistance from one of our Red Cross support departments or outside partners. The top box records information for each member of the client's family who arrives at the same time. Additional members of the family who arrive later should be added to this form at that time. We ask for the name, age, gender, and arrival date for each member of the family. The cot number will be filled in by the dormitory supervisor. Enter whether or not the client and family members are willing to volunteer to help run the shelter. The right two columns are filled in when the client and family members leave for the last time. The final three questions in this box are important. The first one is intended to identify anyone who is required to report to law enforcement, such as a parolee or a person convicted of a sexual offense. A positive answer to this first question should be reported to the shelter manager before the client and family leave the registration desk. In most cases, this question will elicit a puzzled reaction from the client who doesn't really understand the question. We accept that as a no. The second question allows us to identify someone who might be eligible for assistance from the Department of Defense or the Veterans Affairs Agency. The third question is really a statement. The Red Cross needs permission from the client in order to share his or her information with other disaster agencies, such as FEMA, State Emergency Management, or county and city EMS agencies. We only share the information when we are seeking special assistance for the client. But please note that a yes is not required to register. A no is acceptable and will be respected. The client's signature and the date, the registration staffer's signature and printed name complete the form. This form and the information it contains is never shared with anyone who is not a Red Cross person, who needs the information, and who is authorized to see it. Since the form obviously contains personal and confidential information, it is kept in a secure location usually in the registration folder or book in the Red Cross shelter office.